And welcome back to the lab, robots. Today we are going to set a baseline test that we are going to use in many more future videos to come, which is we are going to look at Mistral 7B Instruct V0.3, and we are going to use this to test an array of CPUs and GPUs and start to actually build a leaderboard. Yeah, that's right, a leaderboard. I will work on this off to the side, but today we need to go ahead and set a baseline. So let's record it so that you guys can see this and we can refer to this into the future. So let's talk about what we're aiming to do. We're aiming to set a baseline that we can compare everything to when we're talking about different GPUs and different CPUs. Well, what's available to me today is a Core i9-9820X. So this was released well back in, I think, like 2018. Yeah, 2018. This I bought off of eBay for about $159, I believe. We'll check my specs in just a minute. It's got 10 cores, 20 total threads, max turbo frequency of 4.1, but its base clock is 3.3 gigahertz. It can use about 165 watts of power. So let's go ahead and see, and we're going to use this as our baseline. So that means, hey, this is a CPU on a system that I can build. Let's go take a look at our lab specs, right? And this will be the bench node that we're using today. So it's a Core i9-9820X. Oh, I paid about 179 bucks for it. It's got a Noctua cooler on it and a Super Micro C9X299-PGF logic board that I got off eBay for about 151 bucks. It's got 128 gigs of DDR4 RAM. That's important because that's what we're going to be working off of today for the baseline test. It's got a couple of SSD drives for boot and then a 1 terabyte NVMe drive that it uses to store all the models on. There's the PCI slot configuration in case you wanted to know. It does have a capability of 2.5 gigabit networking, a Corsair 850 watt power supply. It is running Ubuntu 2304. It is a Kubernetes node, a Kubernetes 1.30.3 or node, I believe, these days, which means it's in Kubernetes. That's how I run everything. The app that you're seeing right now is a Streamlit app that I built for myself in Python using LangChain and other stuff to be able to run these tests and look and manipulate the data. Today, we are taking a look at that Mistral 7B Instruct, but we are going to grab the GGUF version because we are going to be testing it on both CPU and GPUs across the board. And I have settled on our base model is going to be the Q3KM. You asked me why the Q3KM, and that's because expanded out with about an 8K context, which I need to get all of my results back from local AI correctly, so that it doesn't exhaust the context and then lose the numbers from the tests. So what we want is a small enough model that we can use it to test even old GPUs that don't have very much VRAM, say, as long as it's got 5 gigabytes is going to be our limit, and that will be, you know, base. We won't go GPUs any lower than that I have at least in the lab for testing. We will also do testing with larger quant models. Don't worry about that. We will continue with this. This is just a base leaderboard so we can compare an exact same model across GPUs and CPUs and keep track of them on a leaderboard that we can kind of take a look at. So let's go ahead and start this baseline test. We're going to go over to the LLM testing. We are going to switch over to just my CPU node. You can see it has no GPUs attached to it whatsoever. And we are going to run that baseline test. So let's go make sure that we pick Mistral, which is, by the way, one of my favorite models. That's why we're going to use it as a baseline here. It also happens to be fairly quick. And then we are just going to put in Mistral 7B V3.0 Q3 i9 9820X baseline. That way we know this is always our baseline test. We are going to let the first one go so that we can see the loading time across the board when it goes to CPU and GPU, although CPU should be just pretty quick because it just loads it up right into the RAM. And then we are going to run 20 tests of a static 100 token prompt, which with Mistral 7B that'll be 111 tokens exactly, that basically ask it to write a GitHub action that is building out a Docker container. It's going to ask the same one over and over. We're not going to seed anything. We're not going to cache any prompts. We're not going to cache any responses. We're just going to let it go for those 20 tests like we normally do to set that baseline. And this is what we will do across the board when we are testing GPUs or CPUs in the future. So remember that. Let's go ahead and get this started. Below, off to the left, this is HTOP. So since we're not watching GPUs today, we are watching CPUs. So this is your live metrics of HTOP of this 9820X node. And over to the right hand side, this is just Prometheus and Grafana working together to kind of give us a basic idea. These metrics will lag behind the test quite a bit, but it'll give us something pretty to watch while the test is going. Let's go ahead and start this baseline test out. Any guesses right now? Go ahead and put it below. This is CPU only Mistral 7B at a Q3 quad. And there it goes. You can see the CPU starting out and pretty much immediate responding to us. Looks fairly quick there. At least keeping YAML formatting correct. Again, we are not testing for accuracy. We are just testing the different GPUs and CPUs and how quickly they will run this very specific model at an 8K context. Oh, that looks not bad, guys. What do you need a GPU for? Just run on CPU. But remember, that's our baseline, so we can understand what we're spending our money on for our different types of needs. Looking good. That's very usable. And it's definitely eating up that CPU as much as it could possibly do right now. First one back is 11.82 tokens per second. That's not too bad. Not too bad with no GPU on a 7B model. Mistral's pretty quick though. Let me know, how does this feel to you guys? This is CPU inference. No GPUs involved. On a, what, 6-year-old CPU even. And DDR4 RAM. Not bad. Alright. Let's go ahead and let this test zip through and fast forward, and we'll come back at the end and take a look at what our baseline is going to be for all of our future tests. Whew, okay. No GPUs, just a CPU, and ended out at about 9 tokens per second. All right, let's go ahead and produce this report so that we can see it. All right, let's go over to the report. And there's our baseline. Let's get a little bit bigger for everyone. And check our data. Yep, looks good. Always got to check your test to make sure that all the data shows up. Alright, prompt evaluation time. Remember, this is just CPU, and a 6-year-old one at that. Not bad. Evaluation time. Okay, this is in milliseconds. Not terrible, as you guys saw. Not terrible. Total time should basically mimic that. Prompt tokens evaluated should be 111 across all of our tests. Completion tokens. Remember, completion tokens are basically the length of the response. Total tokens is going to mimic that plus the prompt token. Okay, prompt tokens per second. 22 to 23, it looks like. Not terrible for just CPU inference. And evaluation tokens per second. Okay, so it looks like we hovered down to just about 9 as an average, really. Just below 9 maybe. Not bad, guys, not bad. Mistral 7B is a great model. It's quite quick, and this is on a 6-year-old CPU using, roughly about 5 to 6 gigs of RAM DDR4. So you could see that you could run this on basically any CPU and still get, fairly decent and usable responses from it. All right, that concludes our baseline test. I'm sure you guys can guess where this is going. Hopefully it'll be a series of much quicker videos that we can look at individual metrics and compare it to this baseline and see where we're blowing our money on GPUs, where it could just be CPU inference, and maybe just get a good idea and a good leaderboard built out. All right, stay tuned for what's coming next. Don't forget to buy your AI a pizza.